Good evening, it's Wednesday the 11th of June and here's what's making news around the world on World News Tonight. Trade deal. US and China reach breakthrough agreement after high-level talks. Firefight. Indian Coast Guard battles massive blaze on cargo ship in Indian Ocean. Wild rescue. Colorado cop uses laser pointer in attempt of coax bobcat from home.
From Colombo, this is World News Tonight with Akwil Qureshi.
Welcome back. Moving on to the United States and China, they have struck a potential breakthrough, reaching a trade framework after high-level talks in London. If approved, it could ease tensions, enact the Geneva Consensus, and possibly resolve China's rare earth export restrictions on Washington.
The United States and China have agreed on a trade framework that would allow them to implement an agreement reached at the trade talks held in Geneva last month. U.S. Commerce Secretary Harold Lutnick said Wednesday that the U.S. and China have reached a framework to implement the Geneva Consensus, which each negotiation team will present for approval by the leaders of both countries before it is put into effect. This comes after 2 full days of talks that began on Monday in London. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said Lutnick had already expressed optimism about the negotiations.
I have to go back to Washington to testify before Congress tomorrow. We have had 2 days of the productive talks.
No, I think we're working on all sorts of changes, and I think the talks are going really well.
The high-level talks between the world's largest economies follow discussions held in Geneva on May 10th and 11th, where the U.S. and China agreed to temporarily slash tariffs. But since those talks, sentiment has soured with both sides accusing the other of breaching the agreement. As tensions escalated, U.S. President Donald Trump and Chinese leader Xi Jinping held a 90-minute phone call last week during which they agreed to move forward with a new round of trade talks. The U.S. announced strict export controls on advanced semiconductor chip technology and visa cancellations for Chinese students, while China had been slow to lift blocks on shipments of rare earth minerals, a key focus of this second round of talks. Lutnick expressed hope that the framework will help resolve China's rare earth export restrictions. Wall Street's 3 major indices closed higher on Tuesday, buoyed by optimism from senior U.S. administration officials. The blue-chip-focused Dow ended up 0.25%, the S&P 500 rose 0.55%, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq gained 0.63%.
6 crew members have been hospitalized after a cargo ship erupted in explosions and fire in Indian Ocean. The Singapore-flagged vessel was en route to Mumbai when it caught fire off India's southern coast. The Coast Guard responded swiftly.
A cargo ship traveling through the Indian Ocean recently experienced a major onboard fire, prompting an emergency response from maritime authorities. The incident occurred approximately 80 nautical miles off the coast of Kerala, a southern Indian state, while the vessel was making its way between 2 major South Asian ports. It was reported that the ship had departed from Colombo and was on course for India. The fire was severe enough to necessitate assistance from the Indian Coast Guard, which released footage showing their vessels actively engaged in firefighting operations to bring the blaze under control. Medical authorities in the city of Mangaluru confirmed that several crew members were brought in for treatment following the incident. Among those receiving care were nationals from China, Myanmar and Indonesia, highlighting the multinational nature of this ship's crew.
Pakistan is ramping up defense spending up to 20% after last month's deadly clash in India, the worst in nearly 30 years, while slashing federal spendings overall. Islamabad says strengthening its military remains a top priority amidst economic and geopolitical pressures.
Pakistan has unveiled its federal budget for 2025-2026 fiscal year, outlining a significant shift in priorities to address both security concerns and economic challenges. The total federal expenditure has been reduced by 7%, amounting to 17.57 trillion rupees. Despite the overall cutback, key allocations have been adjusted to reflect shifting national imperatives. The government has earmarked 2.55 trillion rupees or $9 billion for defense, a notable increase from the previous allocation of 2.12 trillion. Finance Minister Mohammad Aurangzeb emphasized the importance of this commitment during his budget speech, calling national defense a prime importance and national obligation. The new budget also forecasts a fiscal deficit of 3.9% of GDP, improving from the 5.9% target of the current year. Economic indicators included in the budget show an expected inflation rate of 7.5% and a targeted growth rate of 4.2%. Meanwhile, Pakistan is navigating external challenges as well, such as the uncertainty surrounding the new US import tariffs, which could impact its key export sectors. The budget presentation comes amid efforts to comply with the International Monetary Fund's program requirements, while also addressing security fallout from recent regional tensions.
South Korea is drawing a new line on a long-running flashpoint. Leaflet launches into North Korea. For the first time in years, the government is publicly urging activists to stop, signaling a major policy shifting aimed at easing cross-border tensions.
South Korea's new administration is taking its first public steps to reduce tensions with North Korea, formally urging civic groups to stop launching anti-Pyongyang leaflets across the border.
The first step in reducing tensions and rebuilding trust between the two Koreas is stopping the leaflet launches and the loudspeaker broadcasts.
The Ministry of Unification's call came after a civic group representing families of North Korean abductees carried out a third leaflet launch this year, despite multiple calls for restraint.
These actions heighten tensions on the Korean peninsula and endanger the lives and safety of residents near the border. We strongly urge an end to leaflet launches.
It's the first formal appeal since South Korea's constitutional court struck down the leaflet ban in 2023 on free speech grounds. While the Yoon Suk-yeol administration tolerated the launches, President Lee Jae-myung appears to be signaling a clear policy reversal.
Even during his campaign, President Lee pledged to manage situations that could trigger inter-Korean clashes. That included restoring previous measures like the ban on anti-North leaflets and loudspeaker broadcasts, and the 2018 inter-Korean military agreement.
Leaflets have long been a flashpoint used by both Koreas as psychological warfare since the peninsula was divided. South Korea ended its state-run campaigns in 2000, but defector-led groups picked up where the government left off. After a 2020 ban was overturned in court, the skies reopened to civic activity, prompting North Korea to retaliate with its own balloon launches carrying trash. After years of policy drift, the new government is renewing calls for restraint, citing public safety.
Well, let's jump into a short commercial break. More world news on the other side. Welcome back. Tensions flared for a second night in Ballymena, Northern Ireland, as riots erupted over an alleged sexual assault. Homes and cars were torched, prompting police in riot gear to respond with water cannons and batons round to restore order.
Unrest broke out in Ballymena, a town roughly 28 miles from Belfast, as a protest turned violent late Monday night. Hundreds had gathered in response to a court case involving two teenage boys accused of assaulting a teenage girl in the area. What began as a demonstration escalated into the chaos as night wore on. By midnight, sirens echoed through the streets as multiple vehicles were engulfed in flames, one of which was flipped upside down and burning. Rioters used debris gathered from nearby dismantled walls to hurl at police, including rocks and scaffolding. Petrol bombs were also thrown, intensifying the confrontation. Police, clad in full riot gear and supported by armored vans, deployed water cannons and fired plastic baton rounds to regain control. Order was eventually restored around 1 a.m. local time, though significant damage had already been done. Authorities continue to investigate this incident and maintain a heightened presence in the area.
French far-right leader Marine Le Pen hosted key European allies including Hungary Viktor Orban in a show of unity for the continuing anti-immigration movement, aiming to bolster influence ahead of the upcoming political battles across the European Union.
Marine Le Pen took to the podium flanked by her far-right friends and slammed the European Union's migration policies.
Ce pacte des migrations This Macron-Merkel migration pact, the one the Interior Minister Bruno Retailleau boasts of enforcing, it's a pact with the devil, a pact of being submerged in migration in Europe, a pact of demographic dilution, a pact of cultural extinction of Europe.
The event in the French countryside was billed as a celebration. A victory day to mark a year since the far right won 85 of 720 seats in the European elections. But it was also a day of political theatre by the group known as the Patriots of Europe, which has become further emboldened since the election of US President Donald Trump, who has normalised many far-right policies and anti-establishment rhetoric. Le Pen even utilised a Trump tactic of lambasting the judiciary, who found her guilty of embezzlement.
They want to prevent me, the main opposition figure, in violation of all legal principles, from running for the presidential elections.
In attendance were key right-wing and populist figures from Italy, Spain, Poland and Estonia, as well as Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orban, who said Europe's right is under attack from bureaucrats and judges, a claim he did not substantiate.
We will not let them destroy our cities and the safety of our streets. We will not allow peaceful citizens to be killed. My friends, we will not stand idly by, pointing at Brussels and international law like losers.
Less than 10 kilometres away, people on France's left showed up to protest the event, calling it a gathering of the worst racist and xenophobic leaders, who they view as a threat to democracy.
A tragic shooting in Graz, Austria, leaves at least 10 dead and 11 injured. The former student, armed with legally owned weapons, took his own life. Thousands gathered tonight for a vigil, mourning and devastating loss in their community. Take a look.
In the middle of class, multiple gunshots ringing out, piercing the calm at this high school in Graz, Austria's second largest city. Police responding within minutes, special forces on the scene evacuating terrified students. At least 10 people were killed and 11 injured when a 21-year-old former student who never graduated opened fire around 10 a.m. He operated alone, police say, using 2 weapons he owned legally. After the shooting spree, he took his own life in the school's bathroom. This afternoon, people lining up to donate blood. Tonight, some mothers lucky enough to be taking their children home. Tonight in Graz, thousands coming together. A nation stunned. The horror of this kind of shooting so rare.
The UK, Canada, Australia and New Zealand and Norway imposed sanctions on 2 Israeli ministers of alleged incitement against Palestinians. Targeting with acid freezes and travel bans, the move drew stronger condemnation from Israel and concerns over the United States.
The United Kingdom and 4 other countries announced sanctions against 2 Israeli cabinet ministers for inciting violence against Palestinians in the West Bank. The sanctions announced on Tuesday by the UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand and Norway include asset freezes and travel bans. They target Israel's National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir and Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich, both of whom are both prominent West Bank settlers. A joint statement by the 5 nations stated that the targeted ministers have incited extremist violence and serious abuses of Palestinian human rights, emphasizing that the measures are personal and don't affect official ministry functions. Israel's Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar condemned the sanctions as outrageous. And the United States warned the sanctions could hinder efforts toward a Gaza ceasefire and hostage negotiations.
A wave of coordinated bombings and shootings rockened southwest Colombia Tuesday, killing at least 7 and injuring dozens. Authorities blame a guerrilla faction, while President Petro vows investigations amid fears that the violence linked to a recent attack on the presidential candidate. Take a look.
In Colombia, a coordinated series of bombings and shootings targeting police stations and roads in the southwest of the country left at least 7 people dead and dozens injured on Tuesday morning. More than 20 terrorist attacks were reported throughout the day, with assailants detonating bombs using cars and motorcycles while opening fire on police stations in the city of Cali and nearby towns. Police and military officials have blamed a guerrilla faction of the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia. President Gustavo Petro said Tuesday's attacks will be investigated for potential connections with a recent attack on a presidential candidate who remains in intensive care after being shot in the head.
Well, with that, we're going to jump into a short commercial break. More world news and more stories from around the world just after a short commercial break. Welcome back. At the Asian Dengue Summit in Manila, experts highlight education and innovation as vital in fighting dengue fever. New technologies, including AI mosquito traps, alongside public awareness, aim to curb this deadly disease, worsened by climate change and urbanization.
Dengue fever continues to pose a major public health challenge in many tropical regions, claiming around 20,000 lives annually and infecting hundreds of millions. Often referred to as break-born fever due to the intense joint and muscle pain it causes, the disease is transmitted by mosquitoes like the Aedes aegypti. The symptoms can range from fever and headaches to vomiting and rashes, with some cases escalating into severe hemorrhagic fever. Urban density and prolonged rainy seasons have intensified the mosquito breeding cycle, making dengue harder to contain. In Manila, families are taking proactive steps to guard against the disease. Mafe Keberos, a mother who previously survived dengue, regularly mosquito-proofs her home by burning repellent coils and applying creams to herself and her children. Schools, working alongside organizations, are helping educate communities on preventive measures, ensuring even children understand how to stay protected. Meanwhile, researchers are turning to cutting-edge technologies to improve early detection and control. At the University of South Florida, scientists are developing AI-powered mosquito traps that can identify disease-carrying species in real time. These devices, which could cost less than $150, may serve as affordable early warning systems for health authorities. In parallel, global studies are investigating genetic modification techniques to suppress mosquito populations or reduce their ability to spread infections.
Bobcat police in Colorado, Jefferson County faces an unusual call. A bobcat had taken refuge inside a home. Officers tried coaxing the wild feline out with a laser pointer, but the clever bobcat showed no interest, leading to a unique rescue effort. Take a look.
Cops in Colorado got a call about a bobcat that had taken up temporary residence in a house. Police body cam shows the encounter.
He's right there. He's up on that shelf behind the plant. Oh. Right? I know.
Yo, guys, look at this thing.
The wild feline decided to get cozy behind a television and didn't seem to want to budge. So one officer decided to coax it out with a time-honored cat ploy. He used the laser pointer on his taser.
Well, I'm gonna see if he chases the laser. I don't know, cats like lasers.
It's not a normal cat.
Dude, cats are all the same. They all like the same thing.
Maybe. One thing this bobcat had zero interest in was the laser pointer. And as any cat owner will tell you, getting a cat to do what you want it to do doesn't really work. Eventually, it got up of its own accord and left the house. Meanwhile, across the pond in England, the Big Cat Sanctuary welcomed a baby snow leopard. Snow leopards are a vulnerable species. It's estimated just 4,000 to 7,000 of them live in the wild, so every last one of them counts.
And with that, we come to the end of today's edition of World News Tonight. With the hopes of seeing you again, I'm Akwil Qureshi, and we'll leave you tonight with the visuals of Nigeria's Ojude Oba Festival. And also don't forget to send in your feedback through our email address at feedback.ad24english@derana.lk or via WhatsApp on 076-805-7933. And also do stay tuned because we've got Anuradha Vikramasinghe joining you next on Nightly Business Report. Thank you for watching. Good night.